Hey, this is Wayne Barnes with Kaplan Bar Review here with another of our bar exam videos for you. So I teach contracts, and that's my area of expertise, and so I love to help students who are studying for the bar exam, especially wrestle with the topic of contracts. And we'd love to give you some really important testing tips to take in the area of contracts. And the one I have for you now is sources of contract law. So a very threshold thing that you got to know before you even start to tackle any question on the bar exam in the area of contracts is, what the heck law am I applying? Because there's actually a couple of major sources of law that you have to be aware of. Now, the first source of law is, of course, the common law. The common law of contracts, that covers the whole realm of contracts from A to Z, been developed for hundreds of years, starting with the English dudes and the white wigs, and then coming all the way up here to the modern day in our American system of contract law. That's cases and cases over centuries that have developed and created our rules. And I say A to Z because common law of contracts covers everything from formation to defenses to interpretation to conditions to remedies to third-party issues. It covers everything. It's comprehensive. Now, our second area of contract law, our second source of contract law is called the Uniform Commercial Code, and specifically we're worried about Article 2 of the Uniform Commercial Code, or the UCC. Now, what is the UCC, or rather, when does it apply? Well, the UCC is a special body of law that was, of course, drafted by the American Law Institute and the National Conference of Uniform State Legislatures. You don't really need to know that, but I couldn't help myself. That was drafted in order to make a uniform law across the state. So it's short for UCC. When does Article 2 of the UCC apply? It applies to contracts for the sale of goods. By the way, if you thought to yourself just now, oh, it applies when there's merchants. Not so fast. Some of the rules you'll learn apply when there's merchants, but by and large, the UCC applies when it's a contract for the sale of goods. So what are goods? Physical, tangibly movable things. So contracts to sell lumber, that's physically movable, that's goods. Contracts to sell books, to sell cars, to sell livestock, cows are goods. Physical, movable stuff. Now I say tangibly movable stuff. Sometimes things movable, like say you have a ticket to a baseball game or a Rolling Stones concert that you bought for what, I don't know, $250, $400. Well, guess what? That ticket is movable, but the property right's really not the piece of paper. That property right's the underlying right to attend the event. So that really is not what we mean by tangibly movable. We mean the property that you can hold in your hot little hand. And so that's what goods are. Now, what are non-goods? Well, everything else, right? Contracts for the sale of land or real estate, contracts for services, construction services, contracts for employment. Those are not physical movable things, so those would not be goods. UCC only applies to contracts for the sale of goods. Now, you can sometimes have these hybrid scenarios, right, where it's partly a good, partly a service. So take, for instance, a water heater. Down in my state of Texas, I go to Sears to buy a water heater, or wherever I go. Here, it doesn't matter where. And I want to buy the water heater. Well, that's a good, but now also they send someone to come and install it for me, a plumber. In Texas, his name may be Jim Bob or something like that. And so he's going to do some services for me, whereas I also bought a good. So there's a hybrid. It's part good, it's part service. And so the question arises, do we apply the UCC to that or not? Well, guess what? The predominant purpose is the rule, and whatever the predominant purpose of the transaction was, that's what determines whether the UCC applies. So in the case of the water heater, what's it mainly about? I mean, I'm sure Jim Bob down in Texas has some mad plumbing skills, but guess what? That's not really primarily why I did the transaction. I did it because I needed a water heater, and that's a physical good. So the UCC would probably apply to that transaction. There's one last thing I want to point out to you in the area of sources of law before I end my time with you in this video, and that is the interplay of UCC and common law. So it's not all one or the other. I said earlier that the common law is comprehensive. The UCC is more targeted. So notice that you'll notice when you study that the UCC fills in certain gaps. The common law may still apply. Let me give you an example. Duress is a defense. I hate to spoil this for you, but when you study, you'll be reminded that I can't hold a gun to your head and get you to sign a contract. I know that happens in The Godfather and other movies, but in real life, that's not a good way to do a contract. And of course, we frown on that as society. That's a defense. Well, you know what the UCC says about duress and other defenses? Nothing, right? It kind of figures, you know, the common law's got that one. That's a pretty good rule. We don't really need to change that rule. And so the UCC just fills in gaps, but it leaves the common law to apply to that situation. But of course, importantly, the UCC does change certain major common law rules, like it changes the mirror image rule, and you'll see here that a couple of examples of that are firm offers, battle of the forms, a couple of major UCC rules that change the law in particular areas. So your approach on a contracts question on the bar exam is going to be, first off, what am I dealing with? Am I dealing with goods or not goods? If it's not goods, you just worry about the common law. If it's goods, you think, do I have one of those special UCC rules that changes things? And if so, I want to apply that. But if not, I just apply the common law. And that's how you want to handle sources of law as a threshold matter on a contracts question on the bar exam. So that's been another one of our videos answering one of your questions. I hope this has been helpful. If you have any questions, let us know down below in the comments. Otherwise, stay tuned to this channel for more bar exam videos from Kaplan Bar Review.